So before I begin, I have some thoughts on Drake's new mixtape I'd like to share. I think it's mediocre. Anyway, if we talk about the 2011 NBA Finals, LeBron's most infamous moment, besides perhaps the decision itself, he was bad. This is the worst moment of his career. There have been several memes that LeBron haters have saved to their drafts, their actual drafts as well as their mental drafts from this series, between JJ Barea, Jason Terry, whatever else. And I feel like this series is an interesting combination of LeBron's psyche as well as the X's and O's and the Mavericks defense and the team surrounding LeBron and all that. But just want it to be known, regardless of anything I may say, it's on LeBron, okay? He was bad in this series. His lack of aggressiveness was just really weird, and unfortunately there's not at least a lot of easy ways to get the full games on YouTube or wherever else. I mean, you can see things here and there, but I wish I could just see the unedited games to really get an idea of just how passive LeBron was in this series. Because for what it's worth, I mean, his efficiency was pretty good for the series, but he only averaged 18 points, you know? And of course, his worst game was it game 4 when he had like 8 points or whatever it is? Yeah, he had 8 points, and by game 4, basically, you could just tell he was out of the series, pretty much. And usually I don't entertain the whole pressure argument. This might be the one time I would entertain it like that, because I don't think there's been another player of this caliber who played that poorly in a big playoff series, you know? And LeBron has said there were times where just the constant scrutiny and the fishbowl of the first year of the Miami Heat and just being in the middle of every story and all that. Now, it's still not an excuse, because part of the reason why all that was there was because it was like, wait a minute, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade are teammates, you know? Kudos to Chris Bosh, but he was not the main guy. And when you combine all that with the Mavericks defense and Dwayne Wade laying into LeBron at some point, I forget which game it was, and it was the first time in LeBron's life probably where he genuinely just felt like, what do I do right now on a basketball court, you know? Now, if we talk about that Mavericks defense, it was a combination of a few things. Number one, they did a hell of a job just playing LeBron straight up. I mean, there is some video you can find on YouTube of their defense on him, and there's times when Marion is on him, Jason Kidd is on him, infamously JJ Barea is on him, and they do a pretty decent job of not letting him get by them. Now, it's not every time, and for what it's worth, if you go look at footage of this series, there are times when LeBron just misses some makeable shots. You know, like there's a bit of a contest on a layup and he misses, or it's a pretty open three and he misses, and that needs to go into it as well. But a lot of it is the Mavs did a really good job of just the initial thing, whether it was picking him up in the full court or switching on screens, or hell, even going under on screens, swarming him when he went to drive. They just didn't make anything easy on LeBron. And teams attempt to do that now, but because he's gotten better as a passer, he's made great strides with his post game. The stuff that the Mavs did in this series, I don't think would have worked. Certainly not with LeBron right now. Not LeBron on his return to Cleveland. Probably not LeBron even by year 3 in Miami. But for year 1 with the Heat, yeah, it was definitely working. Should also give a lot of kudos to Tyson Chandler. I mean, I think if Chandler's not there, their Mavs probably don't win the series. I mean, defensively, this was probably Chandler's peak. I mean, I know he won Defensive Player of the Year with the Knicks, but this was just his best moment, the 6-game stretch, I would say, for these Mavs. And it wasn't one specific game plan. It was just daring LeBron to take some jumpers. I mean, they dared the entire Miami team to take jumpers, and we'll mention that in a second, but that, and switching on LeBron when need be, and you would always have Tyson Chandler just waiting right around the basket. Now, if we talk about the roster around LeBron, this is another thing that needs to be said. Now, again, I'm not excusing LeBron for this. He still was not good enough. But the Miami team, talent-wise, they became a lot deeper later on. You know what I mean? Getting Shane Battier and Ray Allen and stuff like that. I mean, they were starting Joel Anthony. Joel Anthony. He started all 6 games. He averaged 1 point. He shot 29% from the field. Dallas completely ignored him. It's pretty easy for Tyson Chandler to play defense when he does not have to care about his guy whatsoever. Now, looking at the way basketball is played today, they would have just put Chris Bosh at center. Now, you would have had to have probably had a smaller guy on Dirk, and that would have been tough, but I feel like you would have went with that as opposed to Joel Anthony just being a non-factor out there, right? This was also when Chris Bosh was not shooting threes. If you look at footage of this series, CB has taken a lot of mid-rangers. He only attempted 1 3-pointer this entire series. Chalmers was good for what you needed him. I mean, he put up 12 and 4 on 40% three-point shooting. Like, he was fine in his role, but it's not like the Mavs were super freaked out by him. Another interesting thing, Mike Bibby started 5 games in this series, which I did not remember at all. You know Dallas wasn't caring about him at all. Udonis Haslem played a lot of minutes, and I would imagine he played them with Chris Bosh, so that's some more not great spacing for you. So the floor was pretty cramped with a couple of guys that Dallas just didn't have to defend. And you combine that with LeBron just melting internally. And this is what you get. You get potentially the most disappointing NBA Finals performance ever. Other things that were interesting about this from what I remember, LeBron in the moment was really defensive of his performances. Like, I remember there was a specific press conference, I think it was after the 8-point game, where a reporter asked LeBron basically what's going on. And LeBron's like, well, you're only focusing on one side of the floor, I'm a two-way player, and stuff like that. He was just deflecting, pretty much. I think LeBron, in retrospect, has said, like, yeah, Dallas showed me what I had to get better at as a player, so that's some maturity for you on LeBron's part, I guess. I mean, he was 26 during this series. I mean, I know it's tough to think about sometimes because players seem so ready for the NBA and they seem like adults, but your average 26-year-old's not always the most mature person in the world, so when pushed to that brink of adversity, I guess we shouldn't be shocked that LeBron didn't put all the blame on himself, at least when it comes to a press conference. Maybe he was doing it behind the scenes, I don't know. Now, even with all this being said, Dallas was extremely close to losing the series multiple times. I mean, if they don't make that comeback in Game 2, they probably lose. The turning point of the series was Game 4. They won by 3 points. So, even for how bad LeBron played, it was still a very close Game 4. And Game 5 and 6 were not as much in doubt, but Dallas, they had the series of their lives, man. I mean, they shot 41% from 3 on 124 attempts. I mean, hell, Deshaun Stevenson shot 57% from 3. Jason Kidd shot 43%. Like, they were making shots, you know? And they were all really clutch shots. I mean, I remember it just seemed like whenever Dallas needed a three-pointer, it went in. Of course, Dirk, he was great. I mean, I think he had basically the biggest shot of his career in one of these games. I think it was Game 2 to seal the comeback. This was not his best series of that playoffs. I think his best series was against the Lakers, where they swept him. But he was still great, deserved the MVP and all that, certainly. The Jason Terry quotes were very interesting. It was this moment of Dallas realizing that they had at least LeBron beat. to be honest, I don't remember hearing a lot of stuff from these Mavs about this series like that. Like maybe there's some quote somewhere where they're saying like at a certain point we knew we had LeBron or whatever, but I don't know. I haven't totally found that, but yeah, it was a wild combination of LeBron just getting way too caught up in the everybody hates me now with the Heat thing, combined with Miami's roster not being great, on top of Dallas just doing a hell of a job on both sides of the floor, man. It's a wild series to think about. Another thing that was interesting, and I do remember this, is the rematch. The very next season, it was the opening game of the year because it was the lockout year, 2012. First game, Dallas and Miami. Dallas, they let Tyson Chandler go. Besides that, they were basically the same roster. And up to this point, Miami, they had gotten Shane Battier. He only played 4 minutes in that game for whatever reason. The point being is Miami won, LeBron had 37, and it was this moment of, I remember thinking in the moment, like, oh yeah, the better team lost that finals, and it was just kind of wild to see, like, once the dust had settled and they played each other the next regular season, it's like, oh yeah, Miami's clearly better, and what happened in those finals were like an insane outlier. But it still happened. It's the one big, ugly mark on LeBron's legacy. Personally, I think he's done more than enough to redeem it, but that's not really the point of this vid. Anyway, that's it.